people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
If successful March 30th, what can we look forward to in the future?
When successful.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize. When successful, what can we look forward to?
I want Christina Cruz, just at the fact that she got my last name, and when people think of Cruz, they're gonna think of me, not her. And then on top of it, I would want someone in my division like Adelaida Ruiz. That bitch know I'm coming for her. She not even fighting nobody in our division. Fucking fake ass WBC champ, whatever the fuck she is. Anyway, Shannon Ryan, Stephanie Silva, Jasmine Ortega. I want all of them. I don't give a fuck who they put in front of me. But anybody that's above me, ranked in front of me right now, line them up, and I'm going to sit them down.
That is unbeaten up-and-comer Lyanna Cruz, an interview that was conducted by way of YSM Sports Media about 3 months ago, before Adelaida Ruiz lost her WBC interim title to Virginia Fuchs. I have no doubts that Lyanna Cruz may have shifted her focus now that Virginia has that WBC title, which brings us to the subject of this segment, the current state in the super flyweight division and how it is one of the deeper divisions in all of women's boxing, with many promising unbeaten up-and-comers coming through. Lyanna Cruz among them, who has that fight with Melis Gangloff coming up, the one we talked about. There is a lot of depth at 115 pounds, a lot to work with. You're talking about Australia's own Taylor Robertson, the United Kingdom's own Emma Doolin. Can't forget about Shannon Ryan. You can't count her out. She's still in there. Virginia Fuchs of the United States. Of course, Lyanna Cruz, who I just mentioned. This division doesn't have a star yet. It doesn't have a face. It needs one. And I think that circumstances, given the uniqueness of each individual fighter's circumstances and their backgrounds, some fighters stand a better chance of becoming the face of this division than others. I look at the youth and spunkiness and fiery personality of a Lyanna Cruz, for example, a fighter of Puerto Rican descent, and I see the potentiality for a star to be born, that if she can stay fighting and stay winning. Say it all the time. The Puerto Rican fight fan is to the East Coast what the Mexican fight fan is to the West Coast. And if Lyanna can make some waves, make a splash, maybe get a title, you never know. You never do. She's young, so she has time on her side. That is important. The same applies to Australia's own Taylor Robertson, a fighter that we've talked about here on the channel many, many times over the years. She's a young fighter too, fresh-faced fighter, skillful, youthful. Look over at a fighter like Virginia Fuchs. Now Virginia, she's got the talent, she's got the ability. What she doesn't have is time. She doesn't have as much time on her side as Lyanna Cruz or Taylor Robertson, these younger fighters. Virginia only has a handful of fights and not as much time as they do to... Virginia's good, very good, but she's in her mid-30s. She has to move fast, navigate her career at an accelerated rate because she really doesn't have a choice. While still adding to the depth of this division, the depth of the talent pool. There are a lot of really good fighters here. Madulin, Shannon Ryan, Virginia Fuchs. Look over at the champions. There are 4 reigning champions at this weight, mostly because not a single one among them is with a major promotional outfit that would incentivize an offer to another champion to come over and unify. And thus, there hasn't been a unification match at this weight in I don't know how long. Of the 4 champions that are there, of the 4 champions at this weight, Irma Garcia, Ashley Gonzalez, Clara Lescurat, and Mizuki Hiruta. Of the four, the fighter that stands the best chance of becoming the face of this division, coincidentally, is the youngest fighter of the four and the least experienced fighter of the four. It's Mizuki Hiruta. You look over at Irma, and God bless her, but Irma's in her early 40s. She ain't got all the time in the world. Neither does Clara Lascuraz. She's in her mid-30s. Ashley Gonzalez just turned 30. I believe she just turned 30. Whereas Mizuki is a little younger, in her late 20s, spunky personality. Memorable. She leaves an impression. In the ring, she's an action fighter that's fun to watch with a knockout punch. She knocked out the last two girls she fought. She's been spending some time here in the United States, training in Manny Robles' gym on the West Coast. Because Mizuki is younger than the other three champions, because she's got a fun style to watch and she's just a fun fighter in general, and because she's not afraid to expand her horizons, travel abroad, I feel like of the four champions, she has the most potential to become the face of this division. Now, does she have the most ability? To get the answer to that question, they have to fight. They have to unify, and we'll see who the last woman standing is. But this is the current state at super flyweight, one of the deeper divisions in all of women's boxing that needs a shot in the arm. In men's light heavyweight news ahead of their mega match next month, unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev says, I need to do more training on my skills as a boxer. You wouldn't think one as accomplished as Artur and one as devastating as Artur at his age would feel that he has more to work on. It's very accomplished as it is. Artur Beterbiev kept things predictably simple when he was asked to describe Dmitry Bivol in 3 words. He's a boxer, a good boxer, and he is my challenge. The WBC, WBO, and IBF light heavyweight champion told Queensberry, I don't know. He explained slightly when asked if he expects Bivol, the WBA champion, to provide him with the toughest test of his career when they collide in Saudi Arabia on October 12th. I already had 2 fights before Undisputed for unification fights, and those guys were good too. We will see what happens with this guy. Artur's not the talkative type. He doesn't overcomplicate things, filling the air with sound bites. I remember they once asked Artur if he's a fan of the sport of boxing, and he said that he isn't, that boxing is his job. But outside of that, he's not actually a fan of boxing in the fan sense of the word. He doesn't keep up with everybody who's in it and all the fights. When they ask him about Dmitry, he once again keeps it short, keeps it simple. He is a good boxer, and he is his challenge. It's his job to beat him. The eagerly anticipated fight is being widely portrayed as a clash between Beauty and the Beast, or boxing skills, the boxing skills of Bivol against the raw power and strength of Beterbiev. The assumptions are made by those who concentrate on highlight videos of Beterbiev brutalizing his opponents at close quarters, the 300 amateur fights he had at the very highest level, and the years spent in the Russian amateur system are overshadowed by videos of him strengthening his forearms and wrists by spinning and catching heavy barbells. Those who have shared the ring with Beterbiev have a very different interpretation of his skills. You'd be selling out to a Beterbiev short if you talked about him and you thought about him as just being a bruiser or a brawler. He's a lot more than that. He's a very good boxer. He's a pressure guy, and he's a volume guy through and through. He is those things, but he's one of the most refined pressure fighters in the sport right now. One of the more skilled pressure fighters. Yes, he is a fearsome fighter, but he wouldn't have accomplished everything that he has if he were not also a masterful boxer who has spent years perfecting his particular craft. Beterbiev is a man of few words, but despite the language barrier and his tongue being firmly in his cheek, it wasn't difficult to understand his true thoughts when he was asked if he gets frustrated by people underestimating his boxing ability. You wonder that he wasn't being sarcastic when he said that he needs to work on his boxing? 300 amateur fights, 3 alphabet titles in the pros, unified champion. I think he's been doing all right with his boxing. I feel like in a boxing gym, or when you do some job, you do the job and feel like there is space to do better. I feel always like this. I need to do more training on my skills as a boxer, he said. I will try to be a good boxer. It is good because my goal is to be a good boxer one day, and it means I'm not there yet. I need to do hard training because I'm not there. I'm not a good boxer yet. I will be a good boxer if I do hard training, not for Bivol or someone else. Beterbiev's 20 professional fights have been spread over 11 injury-plagued years. So maybe it's a bit of sarcasm and a bit of Artur's mindset. He doesn't feel that he's learned everything there is to learn or knows everything there is to know about boxing, so it's a goal. It's something to keep him working and keep him improving and getting better and learning, because you don't want to reach a point the way you know it all and you stop learning where you think you know it all. But Beterbiev's 20 professional fights have been spread over 11 injury-plagued years, and at the age of 39, many have wondered whether beating Bivol and finally becoming the undisputed light heavyweight champion would provide the perfect curtain call to what has been an outstanding career. He believes that although beating Bivol would complete one mission, there may still be other challenges waiting for him. For this category, I think this is the main goal, he said. We will see afterwards. Challenges? Maybe different categories, maybe go up. We'll see. I'm not focused on those things. Once again, a man of few words who isn't looking too far into the future. He's focused on the man in front of him. He's focused on this assignment. Stoic, reserved, not one to mince very many words or overcomplicate things. The assignment now is Dmitry Bivol. The focus now is on Dmitry Bivol. So if Artur were to win, there wouldn't be much reason for Artur to stay there. He's already been in there with Alexander Vajdik, Joe Smith, Callum Smith, Marcus Brown, Anthony Yard, now Dmitry Bivol, that if he beats him, he might as well move up if he doesn't want to retire, because there will be no one left for him to fight at this weight. It's different for Bivol. If Bivol were to win, he could stay there because he didn't fight Callum Smith. He didn't fight Anthony Yard. He didn't fight Alexander Vajdik. That there are still interesting fights left there for Bivol that he hasn't had yet after this one, but for Artur, he's already been there and done that with the vast majority of these guys, the vast majority of the somebodies. Now, how would Artur make out at cruiserweight, for example, if he were to move up there? Well, he might do all right. In spite of his age, he might do all right, because look at Zerto. Zerto's a champion up there. You could give Artur Beterbiev very good odds to beat Zerto Ramirez, even at cruiserweight. Remember, Zerto used to campaign at 168 and 175, and he was nowhere near as dominant as Artur has been at any of those weights. So if Zerto can move up there and win a belt, Artur can move up there and win a belt if he beats Dmitry. You could give Artur good odds. Dmitry Bivol would be the third champion that Artur Beterbiev will have beaten. He beat Alexander Vajdik for his WBC, then Joe Smith Jr. for his WBO, potentially Dmitry Bivol for his WBA. That's saying that if Artur wins the fight, he might come in higher on the Ring IQ pound for pound list than Dmitry, because Artur beat more champions than Dmitry. Dmitry included if Artur wins. And that's just something to think about. Over to Dmitry Bivol, his side of things, where he insists this showdown with Artur Beterbiev is not personal. It's just business. It's just what these guys have to do. They're the last two men standing, Dmitry and Artur. Dmitry Bivol has had to be patient, but the WBA light heavyweight champion has allowed himself to begin counting down the days until he gets his long-awaited shot at fulfilling his lifelong dream. On October 12th, Bivol will fight Artur Beterbiev for the undisputed crown. A potential clash between the undefeated champions has been discussed and debated for years. But even after agreeing a deal and signing a contract to fight June 1st, a Beterbiev knee injury meant that Bivol and boxing fans have had to wait just a while longer. I remember when Dmitry Bivol was an HBO fighter. In those days, Artur Beterbiev, he was a Showtime fighter. He was actually on the PBC side of things. He worked hard to get away from over there. He worked hard to get away from Ivan Michel. Something to do with the number of fights that he was promised per year, 3 or 4. He wasn't fighting as often as he would like. On that premise, he achieved free agency, made a pit stop at Matchroom before he finally landed at Top Rank.
Artur.
I'm happy that I'm close to my goal, Bivol told Queensbury. It's like when you went to the final stop in your career, I think, in this weight class. This goal motivated me to be better, to go to the gym, to wake up in the morning. This goal, which I see with open eyes and which I want to reach. Bivol is one of the most cerebral fighters in world boxing. He has made a career out of decoding his opponents and then systematically disarming them and then beating them with his outstanding boxing skills. Both fighters, both champions, have reigned parallel to each other for a very long time. Both fighters became champions in the same year, 2017. Seems like ages ago. 7 years ago, close to a decade, after Andre Ward retired and vacated the 3 alphabet titles he won from Sergey Kovalev, these two were elevated to the position of champion, and they've reigned parallel to each other ever since. It took 7 years to finally get them in the ring with each other. Why did it take so long?
Why?
Well, it's because 2 Russian nationals, even 2 very good ones like Artur and Dmitry, don't have that much marquee value in the American boxing scene, or the Canadian one where Artur is based out of.
In tandem with politics, promotional politics, and platform politics, that Dmitry was with Matchroom while Artur went to Top Rank.
Bob Arum wasn't crazy about making the fight only up until recent years. Did he warm to the idea that the fight should be made? I feel like that came at the expense of Artur Beterbiev, who's the older fighter of the two, that he perhaps stood a better chance years ago than here and now. Conventional wisdom would dictate that at 39 years old, Beterbiev must be slowing down, but he fights so infrequently that it is hard for opponents to pinpoint any patterns or habits that may indicate his decline. Indeed, Beterbiev's last performance was arguably his most impressive. In January, he was at his relentless best as he ground down and stopped former super middleweight champion Callum Smith in 7 rounds, and Callum had never been stopped.
The only thing his opponents can do is study his previous outings and prepare for the fearsome prospect of dealing with a peak Beterbiev.
In his performances, he's not showing signs of decline. It's in between fights where the truth lies, that he is an often injured fighter. His most latest injury was a torn meniscus.
Artur.
Dmitry Bivol's excellent timing, punch-picking, and mastery of managing distance give him a better chance than anybody else of ending Beterbiev's run, and, maybe most importantly, he believes that he has the ability to do it. He's a great fighter. He's a great puncher. Also, he has good technique, he said.
Bivol.
I watch his fights, of course. Not too much, but I watched his last fights. It was a good performance against Smith. He showed that he still has power, pressure, and he's confident. It was a good fight. We will see in the ring how it will be. It's not personal at all. He has what I want and what I need. I can just say that I believe in my skills, and I will do everything to be undisputed world champion, and I'm capable of doing it.
My skills.
It took Artur 7 rounds to stop Callum Smith, 8 to stop Anthony Yard, 10 to stop Alexander Vazdik years ago. In Dmitry Bivol, you have a more defensible fighter than any of those fighters. And as strong as Artur is, when he grinds a guy down, it's a cumulative damage.
He's got to pour it on.
He's got power in both hands, and he is by and large the strongest finisher in this division. One of the strongest finishers in all of boxing. But it is a cumulative damage.
It is damage that accumulates round after round.
Dmitry, being as agile and athletic and as defensible as he is, light on his feet with a pep in his step and speed in those hands, I think it's going to be harder to land those punches on him. I think it's going to be harder to accumulate damage.
It's a fascinating fight.